Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another discussion of the Dr. Consuela Francis Reading Circle, where we will discuss Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. But before we do that, let me introduce myself as Georgette Mayo of the Avery Research Center for African American History and Culture at the College of Charleston. And we have a special guest tonight who does excellent work, which we'll discuss in regards to Black mermaids. And it really, she was the one that inspired me to select this book. Even though it's a young adult book, it's obviously for mature young adults and adults. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And I will introduce our guest so we can start a discussion in regards to Black mermaids. And Toria Cookie Washington, I always refer to her as Cookie, is an award-winning master art quilter and curator. The fourth generation textile artist, she has been creating with textiles for more than a quarter of a century. Cookie was born in Rabat, Morocco, but she has lived in South Carolina Low Country for over 30 years and has played an integral role in the local arts community. Every year she curates an art exhibit with the North Charleston Arts Commission. And if Cookie would like to explain that a little bit deeper when we have our conversation. I am reading this from the website of the Park Circle Gallery. I just wanted to quote a couple of things that she had said. I have a passionate urge to create art that is way showing, says Washington. I seek to make art that challenges people, art that makes your spirit soar, makes you think and feel, or that agitates and annoys. Art that challenges you to learn more about the subject and to find your own feelings about it. So I introduced to you, before I even introduce her, a lot of people always comment on my beautiful black drop that I have. And this is a Cookie Washington original quilt. And it's called All That Jazz. And when I saw it, I purchased it because my son, we call my son Jazz, even though his formal name is James. But this will be his one day after I finish enjoying it. So without further ado, Cookie Washington.
Hey, Georgette, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. Hey, Ruth. Hey, Michelle. I'm so glad to be here. I loved this book. I can't wait to get the discussion started. And Black mermaids are the thing.
Well, Cookie, we go way back. I like to refer to you as a very good friend. And I'll never forget the time when I was interim director at the Avery Research Center and you came into my office with this book called Her Stories. And she says, I had this wonderful idea about Black mermaids. It says, see, there's a story about Black mermaids in this book. And it's originating from the Low Country. So I'm like, well, that seems like a no-brainer. Let's go ahead and do it. And it was entitled Mermaid and Merwomen in Black Folklore. And it was back in what, 2008, 2009?
2009, right after the inauguration.
And if I must say so myself, and we've had many wonderful exhibits, but that exhibit, Cookie, that was my favorite exhibit.
Thank you so much.
I mean, the detail that you put not only in your artwork, but curating women and I think some men also in doing art quilts and dolls. And she got people from around the world sending in beautiful quilts. So we were really proud to have that exhibit.
Well, I'm always honored to get to participate in anything at the Avery. You know, it's one of my favorite places in the Low Country. And that small exhibit at the Avery went on to be a bigger exhibit at the City Gallery. And I'm excited to say that the mermaids are swimming back to Charleston next year. So yay, Black Mermaids. And Michelle Willis is here, and she is one of the Black Mermaid creators. So I'm glad she's here. I hope
Oh, awesome. We need to have her chime in and say a couple of words.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
Michelle, unmute yourself.
Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Michelle from Stone Mountain, Georgia.
All
and
right.
I love Cookie so much.
Welcome.
Such an incredible, inspiring quilt artist. She's just a fabulous, loving person, and I'm glad she's my sister friend. I'm looking forward to the Mermaid swimming back to Charleston, and I'm glad to be a part of this book discussion. I've, as Cookie already stated about her purpose of creating art that challenges you to research and think. She has certainly challenged me and caused me to do, I've watched movies, I've Googled the internet just to learn more about some of the topics she's chosen for the exhibits that she curates. So I'm glad to be here, and thank you for letting me say hello.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. Welcome. So Cookie, how did you get interested in mermaids, particularly Black mermaids?
It was a circuitous path. I was wanting to research Black goddesses, and I guess almost 20 years ago on the internet, when you typed in Black goddesses, all you got was kind of adult, not very family appropriate images. Whereas if you just typed in like Greek goddesses, you got goddesses. So I thought, okay, I need to dig deeper, and I had to go a lot of ways. And I started finding a lot of Black Madonnas, and being a Baptist, I had never seen any iconography of the Black Holy Family. And I did that, and that led me to Stella Maris, which led me to the Black Orishas, and then Black Mermaids. And then I found this book, Her Stories, that has actually 2 Black Mermaid stories in it. And I was hooked. And I thought, okay, I have to do this now. And it's been my passion, I guess, going on almost 15 years now.
Wow, time flies, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to mention that before I came here, I was a docent at the African Art Museum with the Smithsonian, and they did an exhibit on Mama Wasa
Wada.
Air before I came here. So when I saw your exhibit, I was very excited because I already understood the background and wanted to see. Their exhibit did have quilts in it, as I remember, but as you say, the iconography is so lovely, and the images are just spectacular. And what you've done with them over the years is nothing short of amazing.
Thank you. And one of the things, Ruth, that was so important for me as a Black woman who is the mother of Black daughters and now Black granddaughters, yay.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you. Is that one of the things that I say now to young Black women is we need to acknowledge and own that we are not coming up from slavery. We are coming down from being worshiped as goddesses. And we need to know that, because it changes the way you move in the world when you know that there are deities in the world that look like you.
Yes.
And so that was another reason why this book was so important, was talking about the Mamiwatas and how important that is in African lore and our history. And we need to remember that.
Yes.
That.
In fact, the author also notes in her books is Black history does not begin with slavery.
Absolutely.
And she wanted to highlight those aspects of, you know, the arts, the languages, because there was many languages in the continent of Africa, the mathematics.
More than 2,000 languages and 2,000 ethnic groups. And the other part that people just don't deal with is Africa is not a nation. It is so non-monolithic. There's not one thing that you can say that is going to accept all of the residents of Africa are human beings. Past that, I don't think there's another generalization that will hold. So there's no African anything. There's Yoruba, there's Igbo, and that for me is really the telling part. And this particular story has the women are the powerful people. The Orisha is a woman. Everybody's, you know, the mean person, the devil, is male. So I really like this.
Well, we have a question from YouTube for you, Cookie. Where can we see your work currently?
Oh, currently, I have a traveling exhibit. It's a group show at Brook Green Gardens in Pawleys Island. That exhibit is called From Chaos to the Beloved Community, What Does Social Justice Look Like? And there's 25 pieces up there, and I will be up there speaking in September at the Junkanoo Festival. And then you can see my work on my website, which is cookiesewsquilts.com. And my site is always moving. I've got 2 other mermaid pieces that are not on my site yet, but if you look me up and you want to see some pictures or buy cards, I can hook you up. But cookiesewsquilts.com.
Now, before we went live, you had this picture that you wanted to show of one of your quilts. Do you think you can pull that back up?
Let's see. Okay. I go to share screen.
We'll be patient. And in the meantime, let me
show you.
Yay!
And this quilt spoke to the book. These are the mermaids retrieving the souls that were thrown off the slave ships. And so when I started reading the book, I had to get out my quilt and pull it up close to me and go, okay, yay. You know, it was just another way of making me proud that I so believe in and connect with the Black mermaid spirits. So that just made me kind of.
I think it's interesting to note as well that this particular discussion comes shortly after the Charleston Middle Passage Remembrance, because these mermaids are recovering and sending home appropriately the bodies that were thrown overboard during Middle Passage. And without their blessing and their intervention, the soul would just be rotted at the bottom of the sea. And this way they have gone on, they've had a proper homegoing.
I thought that also when I began reading the book. I thought about our Charleston Remembrance program ceremony.
Yeah, so it really ties in.
Those of us who got to see the opera I Am Omar, I don't know if you remember in the second act when Omar is being stolen and put on that slave ship and sailing to the Americas.
Yes.
That the enslaved on the boat are singing, "Help me, Yamoja, help me."
Yes.
They are crying out for the mermaids to protect them and guide them and be with them on the ship.
Yeah.
I thought that was so beautiful and so powerful. And I loved that they had done that research.
Well, the whole thing I thought was quite amazing. Yeah. The Omar to reinforce. So much of our culture is becoming manifest now. I don't know why now, except that I think maybe everything, the prevailing winds are so negative that we need it. And so it has come at a time when we need to be reinforced and reminded. And certainly Black women need to be reminded not only that we were goddesses, Cookie, but we were queens.
Amen.
And we were in charge, and that the lineage was matriarchal. Not every place in the world has been patriarchal, and Africa had its fair share of ethnic groups that were ruled by women. So we're accustomed to being in charge, and we're accustomed to being cherished and worshiped. And so I appreciate your work at reinforcing that notion.
Yes. So, Cookie, was there anything else that you wanted to say in regards to mermaids and upcoming works? And
Just wait for 2023. I'm trying to set my programming up. I will be bringing back our Shango priest, who is a Nigerian prince, who will do again the beautiful ceremony honoring the ancestors at the water. He'll be doing fire ceremony, and then I don't know what other programming I will have, but there will certainly be some. And maybe we'll have another book discussion about this beautiful book and some of the other books that are written about Black mermaids.
well, there is a part 2, which I'll talk about when I do Ms. Bowen's bio. So if you'd like to stop sharing your screen, please.
Okay. Stop share. Okay. Look at me working on this computer.
Okay. Yeah. See, you're learning something at that. So we'll go ahead and start talking about the skin of the sea. And please, Cookie, please feel free to interject as you'd like, along with everyone else. So Skin of the Sea was written by Natasha Bowen. And her bio is that she is a writer, a teacher, and mother of 3 children. She is of Nigerian and Welsh descent and lives in Cambridge, England, where she grew up. Natasha studied English and creative writing at Bath Spa University, intriguing title for a university, before moving to East London, where she taught for nearly 10 years. Her debut book was inspired by her passion for mermaids and African history. She is obsessed with Japanese and German stationery and spends stupid amounts on notebooks, which she then features on her secret Instagram. Interesting. When she's not writing, she's reading, watched over carefully by Milk and Honey, her cat and dog. And those are in her words. And her follow-up book to Skin of the Sea is Soul of the Deep. So we can continue with the Semi as a Mami Wata, and maybe Kola will make an appearance with that one also. But let's go ahead and start talking about Skin of the Sea. It says Natasha Bowen grew up reading The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen. One question always came to her mind: where were the mermaids who looked like her? What classic fairy tales did you grow up reading? And that's a general question for any and everybody.
Well, I did the traditional story stuff. Plus, I remember quite well because the librarian at the Black Library branch, that the school library would save these books for me. They were Flicka, Ricka, and Dicka stories. And I've not seen the franchise since, but that has been some time ago. So I did the Grimm's fairy tales, the usual. And my father told us stories about Reconstruction and after slavery family stories. So the history of our family, he would tell us those stories over and over and over again, so that it was hard to forget. So that was, but in terms of the reading, when I learned to read, I read the Grimm stuff, and I read these Flicka, Ricka, and Dicka books. There were 3 kids, white.
I was getting ready to ask. Well, I've never heard of that stories.
Well, guess what? I'm a day or 2 older. So
I know.
those were children's books when I was a child.
Well, you know, some of those
My
books
nephew has
endured.
Yeah, my nephew has written some really interesting stories that are not published. And I had written a story, a children's story way back. And I did a children's story for Kwanzaa, to interpret, because I used to be a storyteller, so there was no Black story. There was no story for children packaged about Kwanzaa. And so I wrote one.
Good for you. Thank you.
And I read it.
Of course. Anyone else?
Yay, come on, Michelle, take it off.
Greetings, Michelle. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, everyone. I'm out of town, but I didn't want to miss it. So I'm glad I was able to do this through Zoom. But one of the questions that you mentioned about who we saw, I definitely didn't see any mermaids of color. I remember growing up in the era of the Little Mermaid, the little redhead mermaid in the water.
Oh, yeah.
And the fish that had a Black accent. So I guess he was supposed to be a caricature of Blackness. But that was it. And so when Dr. Francis told me about this, I hadn't read the book and I felt bad. I said, I really want to learn about this and hear about what was written so that I can maybe share this with our literacy team to see if they could get some students into this, because this is something untapped in James Island. I don't know about the other schools, but I can definitely say for the school that I used to work in, this type of literature and this type of fantasy, just even though it's connected to history, it just isn't tapped into at all. So thank you for inviting me in to share my piece.
Well, definitely. And thank you for joining us. And for those that's not in Charleston, I like your emoji, your avatar. I'm thinking of the wrong thing, but James Island is part of Charleston in South Carolina for those that are not in the state. So just FYI. So I'm going to give a little bit of a background. Simi, the main character in Natasha Bowen's Skin of the Sea, is a Mami Wata, a water deity from West Africa mythology, who is described in the novel as having a mermaid form. While the red-headed Ariel of Disney fame might be the dominant image of what a mermaid looks like for many people, they come in many forms from all over the world and in different storytelling traditions. The Yoruba deity Yemoja is often pictured as a mermaid, and Bowen cites this as a source of inspiration for her take on the mermaid story. And Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid did much to solidify the image of what mermaids are and whose story tradition they belong to, as did Disney later in the film adaptations. Even though Disney is going to, I hear another Little Mermaid, a Black mermaid will be, I don't know if she'll still be Ariel or not, but she will be Black, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
European concepts of mermaids have heavily influenced the contemporary imagination, but even these are more varied than most people realize. They include the German Lorelei, the French Melusine, the murals of Irish folklore, and the selkies of tales from Scotland and the Orkney Islands, being who live as seals in the sea, but can shed their skin to become human on land. And that takes me to a next a quote that she has in the book. Says, Bowen writes his Samuel says, once you are a mermaid, you are to forget your past. How do you feel about that statement?
I understood it in the context of the book, but I don't like that you're supposed to forget the time when you were human. I think, well, I know in this story it got her into some trouble that she kept remembering, but and I wanted to say one other thing. When I started doing my research on mermaids, the oldest mermaid stories were like from 800 BCE, and every community group, religious group, whatever, that is near a body of water, they all have mermaid stories. And so it is amazing that we think about the Disney Little Mermaid and Hans Christian Andersen's Little Mermaid when mermaids have been around. It predates Christ by more than 2,000 years. So that this story is important, I think, for us.
Weren't the sirens in Jason's, in the Greek mythology, weren't the sirens mermaids? So it goes way, way, you're right.
Oh, way back.
Antiquity, it's an idea, it's an antique idea, for sure.
And you know, Ruth, one of the things that's interesting is Christopher Columbus and John Henry Hudson both claim to have brought mermaids onto their boats.
I didn't know that.
And Christopher Columbus wrote in his journal that he was surprised that the mermaids were not as beautiful as he believed. And I saw a picture of Christopher Columbus, and he was not nearly that beautiful.
I was going to say, in my memory, the rendering I saw, he weren't that good looking.
The nerve.
But it's interesting. It's like, what did they bring on board? Particularly because they talked about keeping the mermaids on the ship for a week or so, and they quote unquote played with them. What does that?
Oh, well,
mean? How did that relate? And you know, maybe that's something for another time, but I thought that was very interesting.
Well, I think your question, Georgette, really was about how did we feel about the requirement that the Mama Wasa person was whatever, I don't want to use the word person, was supposed to eschew their feelings and their humanness. And I think it's a fundamental question. If you have a journey of any kind, how it's very difficult to not carry with you all of the stuff that happened with you on the journey. You just can't forget that. And obviously her memories were so strong, and they're so beautifully written in the book. And I'm so happy that she changed the print so I'd know when I was from dealing with the past as opposed to the present. But those are such beautiful memories. And her mother was, talk about a shero. Her mother was so right. I don't know how else to describe her. She was near about perfect. And who would want to forget that smile and that warmth and that engagement and that love You know, you're talking about giving up some serious love, child. That ain't easy.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so my next question is, the heart of the story begins when Semi decides to save Cola's life instead of fulfilling her duty. What would the story look like if she chose differently?
Would there be a story? The whole adventure is centered around Cola's need to return to his home. If he was dead, he wouldn't need to return home. I mean, he'd be going to a different.
Well, if that's the case, then what would happen to his family, particularly his brother and sister, the twins?
I don't know. The whole book seems like it was set up to tell the hero's journey story. You know, so I can't imagine, like Ruth said, would the story have been a much shorter story?
Good. And in her position, do you think that she did the right thing? You know, making that, going against what she was supposed to do, meaning basically delivering his soul and not saving him. Would you have
I hate to keep responding, but you know, you ask these questions and I'm not known to be shy. So
No.
I do not have a history of shyness and quiet. But
that's why we love you.
thank you. Here's the deal. It is impossible to judge somebody else by your yardstick. Your yardstick is your yardstick. Mine is mine. From my point of view, she did exactly what she was supposed to do because that's what she felt like. And it was so strong. Her human part and her compassion was so strong that she couldn't override it. Even though she knew she had I'm trying to remember the goddess's name.
Yamoja.
Yes, Yamoja. She had Yamoja's caution at the time that she went through the transforming ceremony that she was supposed to eschew her humanness. So it was in the back of her head. It wasn't like she forgot. It was that her need to do it was so strong. And he had eyes that were like her mother's. And so, you know, I said, yeah, you know,
What the heck, right?
do it.
Anybody else would like to add to that?
I think that Ruth is very right. And I think that would be a huge ask, you know, to forget your humanness. And I think that when she saved the young man, I don't know how she couldn't. You know, I thought she's supposed to just let him drown and then take his soul back. You know, she didn't know that he was alive when she saved him. So I didn't wrestle with that at all. I just thought, yeah, that's what's supposed to happen.
But, you know, I'm thinking that he couldn't have been the only one.
I don't know what you mean by that.
That, you know, when he hits the water, he's, you know, they're dead. I mean, there must have been other enslaved that, you know, decided to, you know, go overboard, or people that had been thrown overboard and they were still living.
but this apparently was the one that she saw.
Mhm.
I don't doubt. Of course, there were we don't there, you know, they count up into millions, so we know there are thousands and thousands. But under the ship that she was sailing, swimming under, Cola was the one, and that was her opportunity, and that was her possibility, and she went with it.
And do you think because they kept talking about the sharks, you know, she was able to stave off the sharks?
Yes.
Her voice while she was saving him.
Yes.
There were more aggressive sharks when someone else live fell into the water that didn't heed the Mommy Wata's, you know, demand to stay away. You know, were they particularly hungry?
Yeah, she said no. My memory is that she said to the sharks, no.
Yeah, she did.
And they apparently, she must have said it was some agency in power because they obeyed, basically.
Right.
But yeah, I'm thinking about the other sharks, you know, when somebody else fell off the boat.
Yes.
You know, were they just particularly more aggressive, more hungry? Were the other Mommy Watas not as strong?
I was going to say that there may not have been any intervention, because you're assuming that every time a body went over, that there was a Mama Wasa to you know, save them or to, you know, journey them. And I didn't get any sense of that, but that may have been the case. I don't know what the percentage was. Does everybody get one when you're thrown overboard? Does everybody have an attendant to take you home?
Right. I mean, would be nice, but I think that was, I don't know.
And they said there were only a certain number, wasn't there? 7?
Right. There was a finite number. So considering the volume of the overboards, I would conjecture that you were lucky to get, you know, a homegoing attendant.
Well, speaking of Cola, what did you think of his character? And I felt that he had a strong character, but I'll leave it at that.
Oh, why would you say you didn't think he had a strong character?
No, I do think he had a strong character.
I thought you said you didn't. I'm sorry.
What did you think about his honesty, especially in the beginning, Georgette?
You know, what really stood out in my mind, that he was just adamant that he had to get back home. He had to get back home. He had to get back home to his family. He had to save his brother and sister. That's the strong character that I was talking about. The fortitude and, you know, the love that he had for his family.
I would certainly say that he had character, he had commitment, that he had endurance, that he was clever. I was very in love with Cola. I mean, I could, if I could envision myself as his attendant, I would definitely, you know, be committed to the journey as she was and as she followed through. Yeah. He was quite a noble character, and the two families that we got to see, Simi's family and Cola's family, were just beautifully and romantically portrayed. I mean, they were perfect parents, and I noticed in the acknowledgement thing that she said, "For my mother, who could not read very well and made sure that I did." And that said to me why Simi's mother was so beautiful and perfect. was because she was raised clearly in an environment that had a great deal of support and love, and so was he. And so look what we get when there's good parenting and humanity and compassion and love, those things. And it was particularly interesting to me because I think that's what's gone. What has gone out of our culture is that we no longer embrace our humanity. We don't love people, we hate them. And we're not compassionate, and we're not committed to helping other people. She was committed to helping him.
Yes, beside, outside of all the odds, and she made a lot of sacrifices.
I wouldn't take on a God. And I love you all dearly, but I cannot imagine not bucking a God. And I wouldn't be particularly afraid of Esau, but I would certainly be concerned that I had violated the oath that I had made with
Aldemir.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that don't know, Aldemir was considered the creator, and Esau was trying to vie for that position. And the twins knew where the rings were, and as she was trying to find these children so he could, he could really get the rings and defeat Aldemir. So, I'm usually not, me personally, I'm not really into the fantasy, but I love the way that it was written.
That it was so deeply layered. I think it was really as I was I listened to it and read it, and I thought I loved this book because of the story that it told, but I also loved this book thinking, if young Euro-American people read this, it might give them a different insight than probably what they bring to their belief about us and the way we are. So I loved that, but I did love the strong family ties. I just thought this was such a beautifully written book, and I'm praying that this book will one day become a movie.
Yes.
Oh, well, in the meantime, we could use a quilt.
Yeah.
I got a few, Ruth.
In the meantime, I agree with you. So, I have to say, I had never been to the young adult part. I love the back. Let me make a public announcement. I love the Baxter Patrick branch of the Charleston County Public Library. The nicest people in the world work there. And the facility is so modern with all the bells and whistles and so forth and so on. But I had never been in the young adult section. Why would I? I ain't a young adult.
You're young at heart.
Well, yeah, but that don't count on this. So I go in, and the librarian had not shelved it, but had it out on some display somewhere, and the other librarian didn't know where it was. So we had to do a thorough search of the library, and I was very happy to have located it. I am not, like, as you said, I was never much for fantasy. I did like science fiction, I like speculative fiction and all of that, but I really wasn't into the ninja and that I never got over there. Well, I think that Miss Bowen has convinced me that I need to go look at fantasy as a literary genre. And I know Dr. Francis would approve because she embraced all of it. So I think I will be reading more of it, but it's brilliantly written, beautiful phrasing. And what she did that I absolutely adored was she used African images that, of course, presented entirely different fiction, ideas in my head. I don't know what a mahogany tree looks like. And her images were things that I don't know, haven't seen. So that just added to the joy of the reading, but it's so poetic. She writes brilliantly. She's a great storyteller. This is definitely a page turner. Don't want to put it down. Okay, you're falling asleep reading it. I would highly recommend this. And Cookie, I would recommend it for non-Black, because I think this is so compelling that for once, white people would be able to see a story about Black people and identify with the humanity of that, which they rarely do. They have to see themselves in it in order to be able to connect. But I think they might have particularly young adult white people may have the opportunity to venture over. So,
yeah, in reading it, it was not nearly as long as a Tolkien novel, but the quest part reminded me of like The Hobbit and Searching for the Ring. And you're right. And I thought young Euro-American kids would get this and become really engaged. And so I think it's a book for everybody. And I think if you have young Euro-American friends, certainly put this book and 47 by Walter Mosley in their hands.
Yeah. And such a nice departure from the pain of the world. Such a nice escape.
Yeah, God, we need that so much right now. Absolutely.
Well, as Natasha Bowen had stated, the representation matters. And I think that we all know the importance of that. And particularly if you were born in earlier decades, we're talking pre-1980s. There wasn't any. I mean, we would get excited if we saw a Black person on TV.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, we'd run.
Oh, you'd yell out. You'd yell out. Usually one television set, there's somebody colored on TV. Boom, everybody came running. Yes, I remember.
I know you do. I do too. Probably dating myself.
Oh, well.
Then we're all dating ourselves.
Yeah.
Michelle Willis, having two sons, would you recommend this book to Nick and Corey?
Yes, I would, especially my older son, who I think would appreciate this genre of book. Corey is, as you know, Cookie, is more comical, but the other books that Miss Ruth mentioned, like Narnia and Lord of the Rings, and I think Nick would appreciate it. But the first person that came to my mind was my youngest niece, and I just put it in my cart in Amazon so that I can send it to her.
I think she'll love it, and you're right. I think Nick and his fiance would both enjoy this book.
Well, Michelle, I love your picture do you want to, it's another art quilt. Would you like to give us a little explanation of your quilt?
I can give a
Sure.
little explanation.
Can we make it bigger?
Yeah, because I'm on my phone. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. We're glad you're here.
Let's
It is
see
a
if I can
beautiful
make it
quilt.
bigger.
That's okay. I think I can see it. I definitely see the I guess is that stars in the background of the quilt behind the woman.
If I could share my screen, I think I can make a larger image of
Thank
it.
you.
If the host could make me enable me to share screens. But at any rate, this was a quilt that was submitted to one of the exhibits that Cookie curated. And I'm trying to remember which one. Shame on me. Cookie, do you remember? It had to do with Black excellence.
This was black gold. Yes.
Black gold. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Don't let me get it wrong because it was a beautiful exhibit.
Okay,
And,
you can try now, Michelle. Didn't mean to interrupt you, but you can try now to share.
Okay. No worries. Let's see here.
Awesome.
Okay.
You can see that? Okay, so Black Gold was inspired by a song by Esmeralda Spalding.
Yes.
And again, Cookie challenges me certainly to research and become more knowledgeable after having participated in one of her exhibits. So it was a beautiful song that talked about Black excellence. A father was teaching his kids about Black excellence. So I don't think you can see it that well, but my great grandmother was a midwife. So what I have here is a woman giving birth to Black excellence. And what I define Black excellence as was institutions and individuals, you know, ones that we're most familiar with, Dr. Martin Luther King and President Obama and several others, but also institutions like Spelman College, Morehouse College. And another thing, this is kind of like a joke in my family, but it's probably the 4th time that I've dressed like the subject of the quilt. So when I speak about it, I tell a story about it, I'm in character, which is very out of character for me, but I'm getting I guess more used to telling stories. My grandmother was a wonderful storyteller. She could make up a story about a paper bag and it would be so intriguing to us as children. So I'm hoping somewhere it'll come through and I will be a better storyteller one day. But
Well, you and the quilt are beautiful.
Yes.
thank you so much.
Thank you
I
for
also
sharing.
Marvelous piece.
Thank you so much. I wish, well, you can't tell here, but in her hands are lights. And so
Yes.
when I talk about this quilt, and there's a piece that I wrote that goes something about in the dark and stillness of light, in the dark and stillness of night, she gave birth to Black excellence. And at a point I would click the remote control and the lights would come on, the lights in her hand.
Oh.
And then I'd also like to point out that I have an aunt. I have a very talented family in various ways, but I have an aunt who makes jewelry. And so I asked her to just make me a simple necklace and earrings for the quilt. And she got carried away and did a bracelet and a piece for the head wrap and sandals. And she's like,
Wonderful.
"Oh, I'm making something for you too." And I'm like, "Could you slow it down, please?" It's beautiful jewelry. I enjoy it.
Yes.
Yes, it's a beautiful accent.
Thank you.
I love that everything that it pops out, and it makes me think of, I'm not in the classroom anymore, but when I was in the classroom, we would do door decorating contests for students, and the students would decorate their doors according to like whatever event was happening. If it was a book we were reading, if it were like a monthly celebration or anything like that. And so when I see this as something that students could do as a deliverable after they read the book, where they could probably do a quilt of their own to express the theme, to express, even if it's not the major theme, maybe even the minor themes of the text, because that way you get your artists, you get your children that they might be your reluctant readers, but if they can bring art out of it, they're going to engage. And so that's the one thing that comes to my mind when I see this. Even though by default, I'm a former English teacher, so I like to read. But if I were not reading this, seeing something like this, walking down the hallway and seeing several doors decorated to highlight the themes of the text, this would make me want to know, what is this book about? That would make me want to peek into the text at the very least.
Yes.
Yes, when my boys were in, I'll say kindergarten through 5th grade, there were books that they had to read, at their grade level. And so I'll say at least by maybe 2nd or 3rd grade, it was something that may have been quilt related, like I think it was called Sweet Clara and the Underground Railroad was one of the books, and just various other books. But from kindergarten through 5th grade, after or close to them finishing the book, I would go and volunteer to talk to the students about the book, and then we would make a quilt for the teacher. Now, the quilt wasn't always artistic, but it was twofold for me. I had to satisfy my volunteer hours, and I love quilting. So the teachers, all the teachers ended up with a quilt at the end of the year that was made by me and the students.
Lucky teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, definitely. Thank you for sharing, Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
So we're close to that time, but I want to, the relationship, I wanted to ask about how did you feel about the relationship that Semi and Cola had?
And you all know I can't abide more than 10 seconds of silence. Somebody else, please respond.
Georgia, you go first, and then I'll wrap it up.
Go ahead, Ms. Rambo.
Oh, I was so pleased that she did not do the Hollywood thing and have them come together as the couple that they could potentially have been, because they were so connected and had had such a strong shared experience. And each one went to do what they were destined to do. And I love that. They kind of, John Wayne walked off into the sunset kind of thing. I really approved of that. So I love the relationship, the friendship that grew. And I love the fact that they did what they had to do at the end.
And how did you feel about her going off to live with El Kun? Semi.
She did what she had to do. That was her destiny.
I thought it was a brave choice. And I do like that it was not romantic fairy tale.
Yes.
And that was the one thing that I thought, like, if they make this into a movie, don't mess up the ending. Just trust the author that she knew what she was talking about and let it stand.
Yeah. Yeah, and there is that danger for sure. In the wrong hands.
And I would hope if the author let somebody option the book, that in her contract will be the ending has to stay the ending.
Yeah.
What did you think,
Yeah,
Georgette?
we'll have to see what happens in Soul of the Deep.
Yeah.
Her follow-up book.
Yeah.
I am being a little silent right now because I am typing in our chat next month's book, So Long, a
Thank
Letter
you.
by Mariana Ba. And this is our Reader's Choice selection. We had asked our members to select a book, which they did, and to vote on it. And this is the winner. So it will be August the 18th.
Okay.
And I just put it in the chat. So
Great.
we look forward to seeing you either on Zoom or on Facebook. We're not on Facebook yet, but knowing Courtney, I call her my IT person.
Yay.
For
E or IT.
circle.
Okay.
But we're on YouTube. Thank you, Courtney. We couldn't do this without you. And I want to give a special thank you, a big thank you to Ms. Cookie Washington, Artist Supreme.
Thank you. Oh, I loved it.
For your sharing, your artwork, your participation. And thank you for being you, Cookie.
Oh, thank you, Georgette. Thank you for being you. And thank you for letting me see my quilt again. And I'm sure Jazz is waiting for it.
It's being enjoyed every single day, and I enjoy sharing it as my backdrop. I get a lot of compliments, so thank you. And to everybody else that's in attendance, thank you so much. We appreciate you all the time. So have a good month, and we'll see you on August the 18th. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, y'all. Thank you so much.
Bye.